Every day you wake up, you are presented with a new chance to grow, a new chance to challenge the old beliefs that no longer serve you, a new chance to add something to your mind, something to your soul, something to the person you are becoming. And yet so often we let these days pass by like they don't matter. We let distractions steal the time that was meant for transformation. But the truth is, every single day is a classroom. Life itself is constantly trying to teach you something. The question is, are you willing to be a student? Are you humble enough to say, I don't know everything, but I want to learn? That humility is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's courage, because only the strong are brave enough to admit they have more to learn. You don't have to enroll in a university to be a student of life. You don't need a degree to gain wisdom. You don't need a classroom to be educated. You just need an open heart, a hungry mind, and the willingness to grow. Every conversation is a lesson. Every mistake is a chapter. And every person you meet knows something you don't. You see, education isn't just about collecting information. It's about transformation. It's not just about what you know, it's about what you do with what you know. Real education changes the way you see the world. It changes the way you treat people. It changes the way you carry yourself when no one is watching. We often associate education with age, with institutions, with qualifications. But some of the wisest souls I've ever met didn't have certificates. They had stories. They had scars. They had lived through pain and came out with lessons that no textbook could ever teach. And that's what I've learned, that true education isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it looks like sitting with your pain and asking, what is this trying to teach me? Sometimes it's admitting that the way you were raised, the beliefs you inherited, the ideas you've held on to for so long, they no longer align with who you want to become. And that takes honesty. It takes courage. It takes the kind of self-awareness that only comes when you decide to stop living on autopilot and start living with intention. There's something so powerful about choosing to educate yourself every single day, about deciding that you won't let the day end without learning something new. Maybe it's a new word. Maybe it's a deeper understanding of someone else's culture. Maybe it's a truth about yourself that you've been avoiding. But when you commit to learning every day, you stop living the same year over and over again. You stop repeating the same mistakes. You stop being a prisoner of your past. Because every day becomes a step forward, a page turned, a layer. You must understand that your mind is like a garden. What you plant in it, you will grow, and what you feed it will either strengthen you or weaken you. So feed it with things that empower you. Read books that make you think. Listen to people who challenge your perspective. Watch content that elevates your thinking. Reflect on your day, not just with judgment, but with curiosity. What did I learn today? How did I grow today? What will I do differently tomorrow? These questions are not small, they are life-changing. Because when you begin to live in the mindset of a learner, you realize that every day, every moment is a gift. A gift that can shape your future. Some people will say, I am too busy to learn, but the truth is learning doesn't always require hours of your time. It requires intention. You can learn from a 5-minute conversation. You can grow from a single paragraph. You can shift your mindset from one idea. The world is full of knowledge waiting to be discovered, waiting to be absorbed by the mind that is hungry enough to seek it. Don't underestimate what one day of learning can do. Because it's not about how much you learn in a single moment. It's about what happens when you do it consistently, day by day, bit by bit. That is how transformation happens, not in grand gestures, but in quiet commitments. There is a silent kind of power in the person who chooses growth over comfort, who wakes up each day and says, I will not let this day pass without becoming a little better, a little wiser, a little stronger. That person is not just educated, they are evolving. And when you evolve, you stop living from a place of reaction. You begin to live with intention, with clarity, with purpose. You stop being intimidated by what you don't know, because you've made peace with the idea that life is a journey of constant learning. You stop pretending to have it all figured out, and you begin to listen more, reflect more, ask more, and in doing so, you become more. You don't have to wait for life to force you to learn. You can choose to educate yourself before the pain makes it necessary. That's the difference between growing through choice and growing through crisis. And while some of our greatest lessons will come from hardship, not all growth has to come from suffering. Sometimes the most beautiful education comes when you seek it from a place of desire, not desperation. When you say, I want to understand more, I want to see deeper, I want to become who I was meant to be, that's when the learning becomes joyful. That's when it becomes something you crave, not something you fear. And remember, education is not just about what you feed your mind, it's also about what you feed your spirit. It's learning how to be still, how to be kind, how to forgive, how to heal, how to love without losing yourself, how to speak with compassion even when you're angry, how to walk away from what no longer serves you without guilt. These are the lessons that no school will teach you. But life will, if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to sit with yourself and be honest. Because at the end of the day, the greatest education is the one that leads you back to yourself, to the most authentic, grounded, wise version of you. The most powerful education doesn't always come from books, classrooms, or universities. Sometimes it comes from disappointment, from failure, from the moments you wish had never happened. But those are the moments that hold the deepest lessons. And if you're open enough, if you're present enough, if you're brave enough to look your pain in the eye and ask, what are you trying to teach me? You will begin to understand that every heartbreak has a message, every struggle has a purpose, and every wound is a doorway to wisdom. Because life will keep repeating the same lesson until you learn from it. You'll keep bringing the same kind of people, the same kind of situations, the same kind of chaos, until you pause, reflect, and grow beyond the version of you that keeps inviting it in. You do not need a perfect life to be a student of life. In fact, it's the brokenness that teaches you how to mend. It's the chaos that teaches you how to center yourself. It's the loneliness that teaches you how to be your own friend. The world doesn't owe you comfort, but it offers you constant opportunities to evolve. And once you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can I learn from this? Everything begins to shift. The power returns to your hands. You no longer feel helpless. You no longer feel stuck. Because you realize that no matter what the world throws at you, you still have the ability to grow through it, to become wiser, stronger, softer in heart, yet firmer in boundaries. That is education. That is the learning that no syllabus will prepare you for. Why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can I learn from this? Everything begins to shift. The power returns to your hands. You no longer feel helpless. You no longer feel stuck. Because you realize that no matter what the world throws at you, you still have the ability to grow through it, to become wiser, stronger, softer in heart, yet firmer in boundaries. That is education. That is the learning that no syllabus will prepare you for. We often underestimate the kind of learning that happens through other people. Every person you meet carries a world within them. A world you've never seen, a history you don't know, a perspective that could change your own if you just listened long enough. But we're in such a rush to talk, to prove ourselves right, that we forget one of the most powerful forms of education, listening. Listening not just to respond, but to understand. Listening not just with your ears, but with your heart. When you truly listen, you realize that wisdom lives in unexpected places. That even a stranger on the street can say something that shifts something inside you. That even someone who's hurt you can reveal something about your own healing. And that the people who challenge you the most are often the ones who show you where you still have room to grow. There's a kind of courage required to learn from people who are different from you. Different cultures, different religions, different experiences, different opinions. It's easy to stay in the comfort of your own echo chamber where everyone agrees with you, where no one questions your beliefs. But growth doesn't live there. Growth lives in discomfort. Growth lives in those moments when someone says something that makes you pause and reflect instead of react. Growth lives in the humility to say, I never thought of it that way. When you surround yourself only with familiarity, your world stays small. But when you open yourself up to learn from the diversity of life, your mind expands, your empathy deepens, and your wisdom multiplies. Sometimes the most important person you need to learn from is the version of you you've been running from. The one who made mistakes, the one who failed, the one who broke someone's heart, the one who gave up too early, the one who didn't speak up when it mattered. That version of you still holds lessons. And until you sit with that part of yourself and say, I forgive you, but now let me understand you. Unlearn self-doubt. Unlearn the belief that you are not good enough because someone once told you that you were less than, and you believed them. Now it's time to re-educate yourself, to teach your heart that you are worthy, that you are whole, that you are still becoming, and that is beautiful. There will be days when you feel uninspired, days when you feel like learning is too hard, too slow, too heavy, and that's okay. But don't stop. Even on the slow days, there is something to learn. Maybe you learn patience. Maybe you learn discipline. Maybe you learn to just sit with the silence and breathe. That's still growth. That's still movement. We've been conditioned to think that unless we're achieving something grand, we're not progressing. But progress sometimes looks like showing up even when it doesn't feel exciting. Education is not a sprint. It's a lifelong journey. And those who are willing to stay on that path, even when it's lonely or dull, are the ones who emerge with the kind of wisdom that cannot be shaken. You have to want this for yourself. No one can force you to grow. No one can drag you into awareness. You have to choose to be awake, to pay attention, to take responsibility for your learning. Because real power doesn't come from waiting for someone else to teach you. It comes from teaching yourself. From being hungry for more, not more possessions, but more understanding. Not more validation, but more inner peace. Not more noise, but more clarity. That's the kind of education that liberates you, that frees you from living on repeat, that invites you to rewrite your story with intention and depth. And when you start to live this way, curious, open, constantly learning, you begin to notice things that others overlook. You start to see beauty in places most people ignore. You start to feel connected to the world in a way that goes beyond words. Because knowledge isn't just power, it's compassion. It's the ability to walk into a room and not need to be the smartest, but to be the most willing to understand. It's the strength to admit that you don't know it all and the wisdom to know that you never will. There's something quietly powerful about a person who makes learning a daily ritual. Not a phase, not a temporary decision born out of motivation, but a way of life, a lifestyle rooted in the commitment to evolve. When you wake up every morning and tell yourself, even if the day doesn't go the way I planned, I will still grow. You give yourself a kind of freedom that very few people experience. You no longer become a victim of your circumstances, because you know that no matter what life brings, you will find something in it that makes you better. That kind of mindset is rare. That kind of mindset is dangerous because it cannot be broken easily. It has learned how to bend and not break, how to reflect instead of react, how to rise after falling again and again. And that strength doesn't come from talent or privilege. It comes from the discipline of daily learning. Every day you choose to educate yourself, you are choosing to invest in your future self, the one who will have to walk through seasons you haven't reached yet. The one who will face storms you cannot yet imagine. The one who will be tested in ways you have not yet seen. And the only way that future self survives, thrives, and inspires others is if you do the work today. If you take the time today to fill your mind with wisdom, your spirit with peace, your character with integrity. Because when those moments come, and they always do, it won't be your appearance, your following, or your possessions that carry you. It will be your depth, your awareness, your ability to think clearly and act consciously. And that only comes from the slow, quiet, daily commitment to learning. The beauty of this journey is that no one sees the hours you spend reading when everyone else is sleeping. No one sees the moments of self-reflection when you're sitting alone in silence, confronting your truths. No one claps for you when you choose to forgive instead of holding on anger, or when you take responsibility instead of blaming others. There are no awards for emotional maturity, no medals for choosing growth over pride, but that is the very foundation of becoming truly educated, not just intellectually, but emotionally, spiritually, and morally. Because the world needs more people who are not only smart, but wise. Not only informed, but kind. Not only successful, but grounded. And that kind of person is not born. They are built. Piece by piece, moment by moment, choice by choice. You don't need perfect conditions to grow. You don't need a mentor in your corner every day telling you what to do. You don't need motivation to fall from the sky before you move. What you need is intention. You need to decide that no matter how ordinary the day seems, you will find something in it that teaches you something new. Maybe it's patience when plans go wrong. Maybe it's resilience when things fall apart. Maybe it's gratitude when life feels overwhelming. Or maybe it's simply realizing how much you've grown by how calmly you now handle what once broke you. These are lessons too. This is education too. But you only see it when you're committed to seeing your life as a daily classroom. Some of the most educated people I know didn't have all the resources in the world. They had something more powerful, the will to keep learning. They didn't wait for a perfect teacher. They gave it to themselves. They didn't hide behind excuses. They took ownership. And because of that, they kept growing when others gave up. That's the thing about real learning. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need validation. It needs consistency. It needs humility. It needs someone who understands that education is not a destination. It's a way of walking through life. It's a way of breathing, thinking, living. The moment you stop learning is the moment your growth begins to slow. You may not see it right away, but slowly over time, opportunities start to shrink, your reactions become predictable, your thoughts become recycled, and your spirit begins to feel tired, not because of what you're doing, but because of what you're no longer becoming. People often talk about feeling stuck, but most of the time, it's not life that's stuck. It's their mindset. It's the belief that they already know enough, that there's nothing new to learn, that they've already seen all life has to offer. But how can that be true when the world is still moving, still changing, still offering new lessons every day? You just have to be awake enough to see them, to want them, to chase them. There's no shame in not knowing. The shame is in refusing to grow, in pretending you have all the answers, in dismissing the chance to evolve because it makes you uncomfortable. The truth is, growth will cost you comfort. Learning will cost you ego. Evolving will cost you the approval of people who like the older version of you better. But that is the price of rising. That is the price of stepping into the fullness of who you are meant to be, and it is worth it. It is always worth it. Because what you gain is far greater than what you lose. You gain clarity. You gain confidence. Not the kind that is loud and showy, but the kind that is rooted and quiet. the kind that does not need to prove itself, because it knows who it is becoming. So educate yourself even when no one is watching. Read, not just to be well-read, but to be well-rounded. Reflect, not to overthink, but to understand yourself deeply. Listen, not just to reply, but to connect. Ask questions, not to impress, but to expand. Take notes, not just with your pen, but with your life. And most importantly, take action on what you learn, because knowledge without application is noise. But when you live what you learn, you become someone whose presence speaks louder than any words ever could. You will keep repeating cycles that were meant to end. Education isn't always about adding something new. Sometimes it's about shedding something old. Unlearning is just as important as learning. You must unlearn fear.